So here I'm going to teach you on how you are going to write your research methods in your research proposal. So what is this research methods or research methodology? So it says here, research methodology is the specific procedures or techniques used to identify, select, process, and analyze information about a topic. So in other words, research methodology contains procedures on how you are going to conduct your study. So what are the techniques? Okay, statistical techniques you are going to use or sampling techniques you are going to use in your study. So you have to identify and select what is the proper statistical tool, what sampling techniques, okay, how you are going to collect the data or gather the data, and the different procedures on how you are going to make it. Okay, so that is what we call research methodology. So therefore, the research methodology should show the appropriate research design and analysis. Okay, what else? We have participants of the study. Okay, where do we collect the data, the scope of our study. Okay, how do we collect the data? Okay, the sampling techniques that we shall be using in gathering the data, and the statistical tool that we shall be using in our study. Okay, so what are the parts of the research methods? Okay, first is what we call the research design. So what is this research design? Research design includes the statistical design to be used, the different treatments to be tested, including the statistical layout of the study. So basically, a research design has two parts. We have the qualitative and the quantitative research design. So here I'm going to show you on how you are going to write your quantitative research design. So quantitative research design, we have the descriptive comparative research design, correlational design, experimental design, and case study. So when we talk about descriptive research design, this is purely survey. So in other words, if your research is purely survey or collecting data or using a questionnaire, you are doing a descriptive research design. Okay? But if when we talk about descriptive comparative design, you are going to compare between two or more variables. So for example, you want to compare online selling and direct selling. So that's purely descriptive comparative design. Another example, you want to compare financial performance between banks or cooperatives. So that's purely comparative. So you want to compare. So that's descriptive comparative design. When we talk about correlational design, we mean here a relationship between variables. So for example, if the focus of your study is on the relationship between expenditures and income, so that's a correlational research design. Another one, you want to determine the number of customers, if there is a relationship between the number of customers and your sales in the organization. So that is a correlational research design. An experimental design is used in the field of sciences and medicine or in agriculture. So for example, if you want to determine the effectiveness of a particular drug used to cure diabetes, so that's experimental design. Another example, effectiveness of newly discovered corn fertilizer. So that's experimental design. How about case study? So when we talk about case study, this is purely an in-depth investigation of ideas. Okay, so basically this is a very popular method used in business area. Okay, that's case study. Okay, the second part of the research methods or research methodology is the participants of the study. So this explains the respondents or persons that are involved in the study. So example, students, business owners, sales clerks, co-op members, and so on. So in the participants of the study, it should contain also the sampling techniques that you shall be using. So are you going to use a random sampling? Is it a total enumeration? We only use a total enumeration if our population is less than 50. But if we have more than 50, then we make use of other sampling techniques. Okay. So how many participants are involved in this study? Okay. If the population is identified, what sampling technique we shall be applying? Are you going to use Slovin's formula, something like that? So all of those information should be seen in our participants of this study in the research methods. Next is we have the instrumentation. So instrumentation describes the detailed part of the several instruments used in the study. So basically, this explains the parts of the instrument. So in the instrumentation, you have to explain the parts of the instrument that are being used in the conducting of research. Okay. So example, part 1, what are the information that are seen in part 1? In part 2, what are the information that are can be written in part 2? So that is in instrumentation. So you have to discuss what are the variables or things that are written in the instrument. And basically, sometimes we have to include the reliability and the validity of the instrument. Okay, is it valid? Is it reliable? So sometimes we make use of a statistical tool on how we on finding whether the instrument is valid or not. Okay. The next thing is we have the locale of the study. So this is what we call a place to where the data to be collected. Okay, so where the data to be collected. Next is the data gathering procedure. So this provides the answers to the nature and extent of the data to be collected. So how do you prepare the questionnaire? Okay, so you are going to discuss here, okay, in the data gathering procedure. Okay, do you ask permission from the participants before collecting the data? Okay, are the tools validated before floating them to the participants? Do you intend to interview participants in the collecting of data? Okay, so where did you collect the data? When? Okay, so you have to specify the date or time when do you collect the data. So that's data gathering procedure. So how do you collect the data? Okay, next is data analysis. So data analysis specifies the statistical tool to be used in our research study. Okay, so basically if the data is descriptive, okay, so we make use of frequency counts, percentages, means, ranks, weighted mean, and so on. But if the statement of the problem contains a test of differences or test of a relationship, then we make use of inferential statistics like the t-test, ANOVA, Kruskal-Wallis test, the Pearson R, regression, chi-square test. So it would depend if it is a test of difference or test of a relationship. And of course, this would also depend on the normality of data. Okay, are you going to make use of frequency counts? Okay, so for example, if the data contains of Likert scale, okay, example, assessment on the level of performance, so we make use of Likert scale, like the 5-point Likert scale, 4-point Likert scale, 3-point Likert scale. So you have to write this one in your data analysis. So for example, if the first statement of the problem is what is the profile of the participants in terms of age, sex, and so on. So that is purely descriptive analytics. So what statistical tool you are going to use? So that's purely frequency counts, percentages, means, ranks, weighted mean, and so on. So we have to write that in your data analysis. Okay, I repeat, if there is a test of difference or test of a relationship, then we make use of inferential. Okay, so test of a difference, so it's either a t-test or Kruskal-Wallis test or ANOVA, because it would depend now on the normality of data. And then if we have test of relationship, then we make use of Pearson R, chi-square test, and regression analysis. Okay, so you have to write down those informations in your data analysis. So that's how you are going to write research methodology in your research paper.